smaller than your television remote, no moving part, no complicated training, and it just changed everything the world's most powerful military thought it knew about drone warfare. A $4 million missile, a $30 detector, that's the gap. That's the crisis. And right now, the United States Armed Forces, the finest fighting force ever assembled on this earth, is staring that gap dead in the face. The solution is not what anyone expected, and it did not come from a billion-dollar defense lab. The battlefield just changed. It changed fast, and it changed cheap. For decades, America won by outspending every enemy on the planet. That worked until a $400 drone started forcing the U.S. military to fire $4 million missiles just to survive. That math is broken. And what fixed it was not another billion-dollar weapons program. It was a $30 gadget built by one man in a foreign city. Drop a comment and let us know what you think, because this story is only getting started. The broken math of modern drone warfare. To understand why a $30 device is sending shockwaves through the defense world, you have to understand what went wrong first. The U.S. Navy disclosed that since late 2023, it fired more than 200 missiles to stop Houthi drone attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. That includes 120 SM-2 missiles priced at around $2,100,000 each, 80 SM-6 missiles at $3,900,000 apiece, and interceptors ranging as high as $27,900,000 per shot. Let that sink in for a moment. The enemy was launching drones that cost a few $1,000s each. America was answering with missiles worth millions every single time. It gets worse. By early 2026, Ukrainian and Russian forces were launching somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 drones per week against each other. FPV racing drones modified with explosive, price tag around $400. Shahed pattern loitering munitions around $20,000. And America's air defense systems designed to shoot down fighter jets and cruise missiles were being asked to intercept them all. A $120,000 Stinger missile fired at a $400 drone. That is a trade no military on Earth can keep making. Not for long. Not without running out of interceptors. Not without the budget collapsing under its own weight. Military analysts at RAND, one of the most respected defense research institutions in the world, confirmed this in plain terms. The cost asymmetry, they said, has sharply tilted toward offense. It is now cheap to attack and extremely expensive to defend. And America's enemies know this. They are counting on it. China is reportedly ordering 1 million kamikaze drones for delivery by 2026. Iran has been perfecting cheap drone swarm tactics for years. The Houthis, a non-state force with a fraction of America's defense budget, brought the U.S. Navy to a near standstill in the Red Sea. So what is the answer? Spending more on the same expensive interceptors is not the answer. The answer had to be something completely different, something so simple, so cheap, and so effective that it could change the rules of this new game entirely. And that answer started with a $30 piece of hardware and a Ukrainian engineer working quietly in London, the $30 device that started it all. His name is Dmytro Salin. He did not work for a major defense contractor. He was not funded by the Pentagon. He was a Ukrainian engineer living in London, watching the war in his homeland get worse every single day. In the summer of 2022, Russian drones were killing Ukrainian soldiers with near-perfect efficiency. Reconnaissance drones would hover over positions for hours. Kamikaze drones would dive in with almost no warning, and soldiers on the ground had no way of knowing a drone was near until it was almost too late. Selin built a prototype, a small passive radio frequency scanner that could detect the signals Russian military drones transmit during operation. No moving parts, ran on a small battery, fit in a jacket pocket, and when a drone entered its range, it beeped. That beep gave soldiers seconds, and on a modern battlefield, seconds are everything. The device was called the Sukharok. In Ukrainian, that word means sugar cube because it was about that size. Ukrainian frontline troops found out about it through word of mouth. A Ukrainian military blogger mentioned it online, and soldiers started asking for it by the thousands. A mortar crewman in the Donbass region described it in words that cut straight to the point. And we quote, "It is amazing because it is so cheap and simple." Artillery crewmen started using it as a last resort warning. Combat medics kept one in their ambulances. Infantry units clipped them to their gear. The Sukhorok detected Russian drones, including the Orlan reconnaissance aircraft, the Zala series, the deadly Lancet loitering munition, and DJI Mavic type commercial drones modified for combat use. The estimated cost per device, $52 at its commercial price point. But basic RF scanners capable of the same core detection function cost as little as $30 on commercial marketplaces. 50,000 units were supplied to the Ukrainian army, and demand still outpaced supply by 10 to 50 times. That $30 device was not ending drone warfare by itself, but it was doing something just as powerful. It was proving a principle that would soon reshape how the United States military thinks about fighting the drone threat. Cheap, simple, and fast beats expensive, complex, and slow every single time on the front line. America wakes up, Project Flytrap, and the new doctrine. The U.S. military was watching what was happening in Ukraine very closely, and what it saw made commanders deeply uncomfortable. The Army knows small drones are here to stay. Leaders also know that most infantry units will never have access to laser weapons or million-dollar missile interceptors in the field. So the question became, what can a regular soldier, a grunt on the ground, actually use to survive a drone attack right now? The answer came through a program called Project Flytrap. Starting in June 2025, the U.S. Army and NATO ally conducted a series of real-world exercises across Germany and Poland called Flytrap 4.0. The entire purpose was to build a layered defensive system at the squad level, meaning small groups of soldiers, not entire battalions with expensive gear, but regular fighting men who needed protection they could carry on their back. Project Flytrap pulled together a combination of tools. Some cost thousands, but the core detection layer, dirt cheap, commercially available, and ready to deploy right now, not 5 years from now. The Wingman device is a wearable radio frequency detector. It clips onto a soldier's kit and scans the radio spectrum in real time for drone signals. It notifies the soldier with sound, vibration, or light when a threat enters range. Partners with it, a small jammer called the Pitbull, weighs under 3 pounds, clips to a plate carrier, and suddenly a foot soldier has a detection and disruption capability that used to require a full electronic warfare team. In June 2025, the U.S. Army awarded a $26 million contract to supply 485 of these mobile counter-drone kits to infantry units. Not a prototype program, a real-world fielding contract. But detection and jamming are only half the equation, because some drones cannot be jammed. Some enemy operators have figured out how to make their drones fly a preset course without any signal coming from the ground, meaning a jammer has nothing to lock onto. That is where the kinetic side of Project Flytrap comes in. And this is where something truly remarkable happened. The Army tested 12-gauge Skynet shotgun shells that deploy a 5-foot capture net to tangle a drone's propellers at up to 420 feet away. No expensive munition, no complicated launcher, a standard shotgun round. But the real game changer was a smart optic called the Smash 2000L, developed by an Israeli company called Smart Shooter. Here is what makes it extraordinary. It mounts on a standard M4 rifle, the same rifle every Marine already carries. It functions as a normal red dot sight under regular conditions. But when a drone appears, the soldier activates the fire control mode. The system's onboard algorithm locks onto the target, tracks its movement, compensates for both shooter and target motion, and then, only when the ballistic solution gives a 100% probability of a hit, it releases the shot. From a standard infantry rifle, in May 2025, the U.S. Army awarded Smart Shooter a $13 million contract for Smash 2000L system. Then, during operations in the Middle East, the Pentagon rushed more than 200 additional scopes to soldiers on the front line, with Army officials saying the deal was executed at what they described as record pace. Marines from the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit were photographed using the scopes aboard the USS Portland just last month, in April 2026, heading into the Middle East theater. The message from American military leadership was crystal clear. The grunt on the ground needed protection, and they needed it now. And the tools delivering that protection were not the billion-dollar systems. They were the cheap, modular, soldier-level solutions that every single service member could carry and operate. The bigger picture, how this changes everything. Now step back for a moment, because the significance of what we have just described goes far beyond a single piece of gear. What is happening right now in the counter-drone world is a fundamental shift in the philosophy of warfare, and America's armed forces, through the brilliance and adaptability that have always defined this nation's military, are leading that shift. For decades, the doctrine was simple. America builds the most advanced, most expensive, most capable weapon systems on Earth, and that technical superiority wins. That doctrine still works against advanced adversaries with advanced weapons. A Patriot battery still defends against ballistic missiles. An Aegis destroyer still stops cruise missiles. Those systems still matter enormously, but the drone threat is different. It is not one missile coming in from a known direction at a known speed. It is a swarm. It is dozens, sometimes hundreds, of cheap flying objects, all moving at once, all requiring a response. The Defense Department's fiscal 2026 budget requests $3.1 billion for counter-drone capabilities across all services. The Pentagon is spending $7.4 billion total to procure counter-drone defenses this fiscal year alone, more than 50% higher than a decade ago. But the money alone is not the answer. The doctrine is the answer. And the doctrine now says, you do not fight cheap threats with expensive weapons. You fight cheap threats with cheap weapons that are smart enough to win. The Horoshock anti-drone ammunition developed in Ukraine is a perfect example of this. Standard NATO caliber, 5.56 by 45 millimeters, drops into any rifle magazine that American and Allied soldiers already carry, designed specifically to destroy FPV drones and Mavic-type commercial drones modified for combat. By December 2025, Ukraine's Ministry of Defense announced plans to scale production to 400,000 rounds per month, with a goal of putting at least one anti-drone magazine in the hands of every frontline soldier. No new platform, no new launcher, no new training pipeline, just ammunition. In a rifle, the soldier already has. And at the high end of the cost equation, the gap is closing there too. Israel's Iron Beam laser system, which fired its first confirmed combat intercepts in early 2026, costs approximately $2 per shot, not a typo, $2, compared to a Patriot interceptor at $4 million per shot. The counter-drone market as a whole is projected to jump from $2.8 billion in 2025 to over $19 billion by 2035. Every major Allied military is racing to get there first, but America is not just racing, America is leading. And the lesson America learned, the lesson bought with millions of dollars in Red Sea interceptor missiles and hard battlefield experience, is the very lesson that $30 sugar cube proved on the front lines of Ukraine. The simplest solution, fielded fastest, win. What comes next and why it matters to America. Here is where the conversation gets personal for every American who has watched this country's brave men and women serve in harm's way. Right now, in the Middle East, U.S. Marines are conducting counter-drone training aboard Navy ships. They are practicing exactly the layered soldier-level doctrine that Project Flytrap proved in Europe. The Smash 2000L scopes are on their rifle, the detection gear is on their kit, and the threat they are preparing for is real. Iran's military capacity for drone production has not slowed down. The Houthi threat in the Red Sea has not disappeared. And China, the most significant long-term strategic competitor America faces, is ordering drones by the million. What the American military leadership has recognized, and what should give every patriotic American real pride, is that the U.S. is not sitting still. It is not waiting for a perfect gold-plated solution that takes 10 years and $40 billion to develop. In August 2025, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced the formation of Joint Interagency Task Force 401 specific to accelerate counter-drone work, cutting through bureaucracy, moving faster and getting capability into soldiers' hands at the speed of the actual threat. In April 2026, the Department of Defense launched a new counter-UAS online marketplace, a direct, streamlined way for soldiers and commanders to access the best available counter-drone technologies without waiting years for a traditional procurement cycle. And here is the beautiful truth underneath all of this. The $30 device, the sugar cube that a single engineer built in a London apartment to help soldiers survive, cracked open an idea that America's military innovators ran with. You do not need to match your enemy dollar for dollar. You need to be smarter about how every dollar is spent. A $30 scanner that tells a soldier there is a drone coming gives that soldier time to activate a 3-pound jammer that costs far less than the drone it is stopping. Then a rifle-mounted smart scope fires a standard bullet. One shot, one kill. No $1 million interceptor, no gold-plated system, just a layered, affordable defense that every soldier can carry, learn in minutes, and use under fire. That is the American way. Not just throwing money at a problem, finding the smart solution, building it fast, and putting it in the hands of the finest warriors on the planet. Wrap up. The $30 weapon that could end drone warfare forever is not one single device. It is a principle. It is the understanding, hard won on battlefields from Ukraine to the Red Sea, that the future of warfare belongs to whoever solves the cost equation first. That expensive threats do not always require expensive answers. That a small, simple, soldier-level tool deployed by the thousands can outperform a handful of multi-million-dollar systems. The United States Armed Forces are adapting to this reality faster and more effectively than any other military on Earth. Smart optics on rifles, net-firing shotgun shells, wearable jammers, $2 laser intercepts, and yes, $30 radio detectors that give a soldier enough warning to survive what is coming. The drone age is not going away. The threats are going to get more sophisticated, not less. But the men and women of the American military have never met a challenge they could not adapt to. That is not sentiment. That is history. And right now, history is being written, one beep from a $30 device at a time. Conclusion. If this story opened your eyes to what is really happening on today's battlefield, hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss what we cover next. The technology is changing faster than most people realize, and this channel will keep you ahead of it.